Imagine a state-of-the-art deep-water port meant to be a nation's gateway to the world. For Sri Lanka, the Hambantota port was that dream, strategically located, brimming with promise. But the price tag was enormous, and Sri Lanka couldn't afford it alone. So it turned to China for over $1 billion in loans, and the port was built. Yet the ships never came. The port sat empty, unable to generate the revenue needed to pay back its loans. Debt mounted, and Sri Lanka faced a stark choice. In 2017, unable to repay, Sri Lanka handed operational control of Hambantota Port to a Chinese state-owned company. It wasn't a sale, but a 99-year lease, nearly a century of foreign management over a strategic asset. The Sri Lankan flag still flies, but the profits and control now belong to China. Hambantota became the global symbol of debt-trap diplomacy, a new kind of influence that doesn't require armies. This was more than a business deal gone wrong. It was a geopolitical earthquake. The port's location, just off India's coast, gave China a powerful foothold in the Indian Ocean. For many, this was the plan all along. Hambantota's story is now a cautionary tale for developing nations everywhere. It's a lesson in how dreams of development, built on borrowed money, can quietly become tools of control. The world watched as a nation's hopes were signed away. Not with force, but with a pen. The silent takeover had begun. To understand Sri Lanka's story, you need to know about China's Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. Launched in 2013, the BRI is a multi-trillion-dollar plan to build roads, railways, and ports across Asia, Africa, and beyond. China says the goal is shared prosperity, but the reality is more complex. Many developing countries desperately need infrastructure, but lack the funds. Western lenders like the World Bank offer loans with strict conditions: economic reforms, transparency, anti-corruption. China offers a faster, easier path: big loans, fewer questions, and quick results. Since 2013, China has loaned over $1 trillion to more than 150 countries, reshaping global development finance. But critics warn that this modern Silk Road is paved with debt. The term debt-trap diplomacy describes the risk. China lends more than countries can repay, then uses the leverage to demand concessions. The real prize isn't always money. It's control over ports, railways, and power grids. Through finance, not force, China builds influence. The BRI is changing the world, one loan at a time. The real power of China's lending lies in the fine print, hidden clauses, and opaque contracts. Unlike public loans from the World Bank, BRI deals are secretive, often shielded from public scrutiny. Collateral is key countries pledge national assets, ports, utilities, even natural resources, as security. If a country defaults, China can take control, bypassing international courts. Debt for equity swaps are common. China cancels debt in exchange for ownership stakes, as in Hambantota. Long-term leases, sometimes up to 99 years, give China control without outright ownership. The host country keeps its flag, but China holds the keys. High costs and variable interest rates make these loans hard to service, especially if projects underperform. This can trap countries in a cycle of dependency, needing new loans just to pay the old ones. The result? Growing financial and political leverage for Beijing. The fine print becomes a chain, quietly shifting power from debtor to creditor. What starts as development ends as dependency. The leverage is legal, but the consequences are profound. Hambantota isn't alone. Similar stories are unfolding worldwide. In Laos, Chinese loans for railways and dams led to soaring debt. Soon, China took majority control of the national power grid. In the Maldives, huge Chinese loans for infrastructure left the country owing 40% of its external debt to China, with Chinese firms securing long-term leases on islands. In Zambia, fears grew that default could mean losing control of the national broadcaster, power company, or even the main airport. The assets at risk aren't just commercial, they're essential to national survival. Across Africa and Asia, the fear of losing sovereignty is real. The promise of development comes with a hidden cost, anxiety over who truly owns a nation's future. The pattern is clear and the stakes are high. For China, the ultimate prize isn't just assets, it's political influence. Holding a nation's debt is holding a political IOU. When China needs support at the UN or on sensitive issues, debtor nations often comply. Voting patterns show that countries deep in Chinese debt are more likely to align with Beijing. This influence extends to technology too. Many nations adopt Chinese 5G networks, deepening dependency. Debt becomes a tool for shaping a new global order, with China at the center. Ports and power grids are just the surface. Beneath lies a web of influence, quietly shifting global power. The world is being redrawn, one loan at a time. If the risks are so high, why do countries keep saying yes? For many, the need for infrastructure is urgent. Modern economies can't run on crumbling roads and unreliable power. Western loans come with slow, strict conditions. China offers speed and fewer strings. Leaders under pressure want quick results, and China delivers. The no-questions-asked approach is appealing, especially for governments wary of Western scrutiny. Some politicians also benefit personally from opaque deals, fueling corruption. For nations starved of development, the promise of a new bridge or port outweighs long-term risks. They're not just choosing a loan, they're choosing hope, even if it's risky. The price of progress can be steep. The debt trap narrative is powerful, but the truth is more complicated. Critics say it oversimplifies, ignoring the agency of borrowing nations. Many countries actively pursued these projects, seeing them as calculated risks. China doesn't always seize assets. Often it restructures or forgives loans, especially for poorer nations. Beijing insists the BRI is about development, not domination. The reality is a mix. China uses economic power for influence, but host countries make their own choices, sometimes wisely, sometimes not. It's less a trap, more a high-stakes gamble. Both sides play for advantage, and the outcomes are never simple. The deals are shaped by ambition, need, and risk. After years of signing deals, some countries are pushing back. As the costs become clear, governments are canceling projects, demanding better terms, and scrutinizing new proposals. Malaysia paused and renegotiated major Chinese-backed projects. Slashing costs and sending a message terms can be challenged. In Africa, Sierra Leone canceled a Chinese-funded airport. Tanzania and Pakistan have also sought better terms. This new confidence shows nations can fight for their interests. But it's not easy. Many remain locked into long-term commitments, with debt piling up. The World Bank warns that many low-income countries are at high risk of debt distress, with China as their largest creditor. The global landscape is now a patchwork of enthusiasm, caution, and resistance. Some nations are finding their voice, others remain caught in the web. The era of blind acceptance is ending, but the struggle is far from over. The Belt and Road Initiative marks a monumental shift in global power. China offers rapid development to nations left behind by the West, but the cost is often steep. Developing countries walk a tightrope, balancing urgent needs against the risk of losing control. The line between partnership and trap is blurry, and the consequences last generations. The debate over debt trap diplomacy rages on, but the reality is complex. As billions in repayments come due, the world watches to see who will win this high-stakes game. The outcome will define power and independence in the 21st century. The story isn't over. It's just beginning.